Hey everyone, and welcome to the Mae Cave. My name is Megan, and today I'm bringing you a book review of The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I buddy read this with someone named Lou. She is a commenter here on booktube. She doesn't have a channel though, and she found me, and we decided to do buddy read on this. And I'm glad that we did, because we actually have very similar thoughts on this book. So a lot of you probably know what this is about. Watched the TV show, read the book, or at least have heard of it. I know I've heard of it before. I never really knew exactly what it was about. When I first heard of this book, I actually thought it was historical fiction, but then I found out it was dystopian, and dystopian isn't quite up my alley, but I figured I would try it anyway because so many people love it, and it does have a somewhat interesting plot. So for those of you that don't know, the basis of this book is that there is the Republic of Gilead, and they have taken over some section of the United States and maybe Canada. I'm not really sure. And they've ushered in this new era of very conservative, very religious. It's a very dystopian book. I don't know how to describe it. Women have different roles for different things. There's a wife, there's the housekeeper, there's the woman that has your kids, and it's a very interesting, very religious, conservative society right now. And it's the section of that society, the time frame that it's in our current time frame. But the main character is actually, she grew up in our normal everyday life that we have now. She got married, she had a kid, and then the Republic of Gilead slowly started taking over, and they eventually did take over, and so she is now in this as a handmaid, which is why it's called The Handmaid's Tale, and the handmaid is the girl that basically gets pregnant for the couples, and that's, I guess, kind of it for the description of it, without giving anything away. So this is the book. It is set. The main character's name is Offred. Oh, that is the name she's given in the new society. I don't remember her old name, but her name is Offred, and it's basically her talking about, telling you what it's like now, and then she has some flashbacks to the back and forth to different times in the past. It's not just one time in the past, and then now there's a few different moments or different time frames in her past, from sometimes her childhood, sometimes college years, sometimes her married life, and then now. And overall, though, I didn't like the book. I know a lot of people love this book, and they think it's amazing. Dane Reed says it's one of his favorite books of the year, if not the favorite book of the year. I didn't like it, though. There is not much that I liked about this book, actually. The overall plot I thought was interesting. I thought this type of world is a very interesting society to have been created, and all the drawbacks and the different niches of this society are very interesting. Not, of course, to live in, but to read about. Even though the book was vague, it was still interesting to me, and my favorite section was actually the last chapter. Overall, the whole book, the last chapter is called Historical Notes, and at first I was like, what are the historical notes? How could you have historical notes on a book that you made about the future, or a different current time frame? Historical notes are actually part of the book itself, but that's about all that I liked about the book. I didn't like the writing style. There are too many times in which she didn't use quotations to differentiate a thought from a spoken word, and a lot of the times the spoken word would be right before the thought, and I would get confused, and I wasn't sure what was being said, and sometimes I wasn't sure who was saying what. I didn't like her writing style. She used sometimes too many commas, and so it was kind of halting when I'm trying to read it properly, and I'm like, what? It's all with the commas, and I didn't like it. It took me out of the story a lot. The flashbacks I did not like, because some of them were very unimportant and I think didn't serve the story at all, and some of them, whether or not they served the story, were actually detrimental to the scene that they were in. So she'd be in the scene, and then she'd have this flashback, and then it would go back to the scene, but the flashback was so different than the scene that it just would take you out of it, and then you have to try and get back into the scene, and I don't like being taken out of the story like that, so I did not like the flashbacks at all. Most of them I thought were unimportant and useless to the story. And most of the time, the entire story to me was very vague. I didn't really understand how or why once you get near the end, it kind of explains it a little bit as to the how and why this republic came to be. But it was you're just here, and she has some flashbacks that kind of explain some things, but not really. So you don't really 100% get the full story ever until the very end, and then you get more of the full story, but not really everything. And I don't like the vagueness of it. I just didn't care for any of that. And so, like I said, the writing style I didn't care for. The vagueness of the entire book I didn't like. The story itself was just kind of weird. I don't know, it's just, even though I think it is interesting as a plot design, and the Republic itself, it just didn't sit right with me. I guess really I'm trying to say it felt very disjointed. It just wasn't there. I just was taken out of the story too much. There were pieces that just didn't matter to me. I didn't really care about any of the characters or what happened to her daughter. I had a vague caring actually about the daughter, and like I wanted to know where her daughter and husband were. Were they dead? Were they alive? What happened? But at the same time, I didn't care enough to really bother saying, I wish the book was written differently, because given the choice, if I knew how much of this was, I probably wouldn't. I mean, I guess I'm glad that I read it once because it was so popular, but... And I might try the TV show. I watched the first half of the first episode, but the problem with that is that because the book was so fresh in my mind, I noticed every single difference with the TV show, but the TV show was still very disjointed, just like the book, and I don't like that. But even though I didn't like the book, I felt like some of the differences they put in the TV show didn't make sense, but at the same time, I know that the TV show is going to diverge from the book because there are already 2 seasons, and I'm sure it's going to keep going, and the way this book is, obviously could not support 2 seasons or more. I think 1 season if you stayed to the book. But overall, I didn't like it. I thought it was just kind of I gave it 2 stars on Goodreads. I might go as high as 2.5, but really 2 stars, maybe 1.5 stars. I'm not going to keep it on my shelves. I'm going to unhaul it. I'm never probably going to think about the book again. I mean, probably because I'm going to try and watch the TV show, but that's kind of it. The very ending, the historical notes, was actually my favorite part because that last section told me more about what happened in the book than the entire rest of the book. And her reasoning in the last section for why the rest of the book didn't really give you much, I felt like it wasn't good enough. I feel, as the author, you can choose whatever you want to do with your book, which means you can really do anything regardless of whether or not you want to do it. Or what I'm trying to say is she could have done a better job with this story. Instead of just making it a piece of history that no one really knows the rest of or anything like that, we'll be left with the mystery. That's not what I want as a reader, so I didn't really care for the book. And that's all I'm going to say, because now I'm going to start repeating myself, because I do that a lot. So overall, I give this book 2 stars. I would recommend it if you like dystopian. You might like it more than I did. There are plenty of people out there that love this book, and it's just not for me. I didn't like much of it. So personally, if you have reading taste like me, I wouldn't recommend it, but I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that love it and would recommend it. So I say go forth and do your own thoughts with this particular book and just try it out. It's not a very long book, honestly. I got through it very quickly within less than 5 days, I think, and that's pretty fast for me. So I think part of it was that I just kind of wanted to get it done. And I did skip over some of those flashbacks I didn't care about, or some of the scenes where she's describing something that I didn't care about. So anyway, that's what I think about the book. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to try to watch the TV show and see what I think about that beyond the first half of the first episode. But I'm not sure I'm going to like the TV show. I am interested to see how the TV show diverges from the book, and maybe the TV show will give more to the story. That's why I'm interested with the TV show. But if I didn't think it was going to do that, I wouldn't watch the TV show either. So anyway, that is it. I'm going to wrap this up now and stop rambling. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down below what you guys thought of The Handmaid's Tale, whether it's the book or the TV show or both. If you loved it, tell me. If you hated it, tell me. If you were like okay with it, whatever. Obviously, I'm one of the few that didn't like it, so I'm open to whatever you have to say about the book or the TV show, and or whatever else you want to tell me. Anyway, that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.